This morning, on what is becoming almost a theme in this month, we've got another origin story, where somebody came from, in this case, Isaac. And like all origin stories, you'll notice there are some aspects of it that are really strangely different, interesting, big, because that's what you had to do to say an important person was arriving on the earth. Genesis, the 18th chapter. God appeared to Abraham at the oaks of Mamre as he sat by the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. He raised his eyes and suddenly saw three men standing at a distance from him. And when he saw them, he ran from the entrance of his tent to welcome them, bowing down to the ground. And he said, "My Lord, if I have found favor in your estimation, please do not pass by your servant. Let me have a little water brought to wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread so you may recover your strength, and after that you may continue on as you have graced me with your presence." And they said, "Do as you have suggested." Then Abraham hurried to the tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, get 22 liters of fine flour, knead it, and make some cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and fine, and gave it to a servant who quickly prepared it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared, and he set these before them, and he stood near them under the tree while they ate. And they asked him, "Where is your wife, Sarah?" And he said, "Over there in the tent." And one of them said, "I'll be coming back to you in the spring, and your wife, Sarah, shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the flap of the tent behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and of advanced years, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. And Sarah laughed to herself, thinking, after all this, after I have become worn out and am no longer open to such pleasures, and my husband is old. Amen. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are, anything your heart desires will come to you. Yep, that's from Pinocchio, and it's one of Disney's probably best known and favorite pieces. And this is because we are who we are. We are beings who dream. We have small dreams and large dreams, public dreams and private dreams. We have dreams that are immediate. I hope the package comes tomorrow. And we have dreams that are long-term. I really am intending on finishing this course I just began. Some dreams we think of often. They're the dreams that lead us, that guide us, that give our life shape. And some dreams we just take out every once in a while to look at and to reflect upon, and they give our life a certain consistency and depth. And then there are some dreams we hold that are still there and we enjoy, but we know that probably they will never come true. I have to admit here today, with some difficulty, that I don't think I'm ever going to get my Lamborghini. Yeah, it's just something I'm going to have to accept. So the question is, well, what happens when dreams are answered, when dreams do come true, when we get what we want? Well, we have parties, we celebrate, we put all sorts of things out on YouTube and Instagram, we arrange something special, we celebrate in some way and smile and laugh and say, this is great. Dreams can come to fruition. At least that's the usual process. But there are times when dreams come true, when we technically get what we want, but things don't happen how or when we expect or in the way we expect. And then our response is somewhat more muted, somewhat more reflective, somewhat more tumultuous. We're not really sure what we think about this. I finally got a chance to practice my painting. You know, all my life I've had painting as a side hobby, and I've never really been able to have a block of time when I can work on it, and now I do. And now I'm old enough that my hands are shaking and I'm not painting well at all. No. They finally offered me that job that I've been waiting to get for years. I took all those university courses. I'm ready. The job's there. And it's in Latvia. You know, these are dreams that are answered, but they're not really what we expected. On April 7th, 1969, I set off by train from Hamilton to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and arrived there on a cold, damp, miserable, soggy, early April snowstorm. And then I got into a truck and drove through the gumbo and the mud along the back roads to beautiful downtown Wood Mountain, Saskatchewan. Now, have any of you ever been to Wood Mountain, Saskatchewan? Yes! We'll talk after. Have any of you ever heard of Wood Mountain, Saskatchewan, other than those two people? Well, probably not. It's in the Badlands, between La Flèche and Assiniboia. Beautiful country. And there it is as I arrived. And I must say the sad thing is I looked up this picture on Google the other day, and other than the second blue building and the one next to it, which are in ruins, and the house away at the end of the street there, the rest of the town is pretty well gone. But that was Wood Mountain. That's where I arrived, and I stepped into the next slide, which is my beautiful mansion where I lived. One room in the snow. Now, if you look really hard, you can see a church with spires sticking up behind it. That's not the United Church. No, that's the Greek Orthodox Church. That's who you want it to be. The United Church is the little church with the peak. And I arrived there. It was almost dinner. I went with one family for dinner, and then they brought me here and showed me the door. And that night I lay there. I was cold, couldn't figure out how to turn on the heater. My trunk, which I'd brought with me, was in the middle of the floor, coated in gumbo, because it had been in the back of the truck all the way from Moose Jaw. You could scrape it off gradually. And there was a washroom somewhere between the Caragana Hedge and the United Church, which probably at some point during the summer I'd have to explore. And as I lay there, I learned my first great lesson in ministry. And that is that God has a challengingly delightful sense of humor. And like Sarah, I laughed. So this is the dream, is it? You know, all the courses, all the lectures, all the notes, all the discussion about textual criticism and understanding Hebrew literature. This is it. This is Wood Mountain. This is where I am. And that's what happens so often in life. We get that dream. It comes to us, and we look at it and we say, well, it's not quite the shape that I expected, or when I expected, or how I expected it. By the way, I'll give you a happy ending to the Wood Mountain story. It's a wonderful community, great people. It is a barren, windswept landscape, but I took chuck wagon camps through there. I drove the chuck wagon, and we had horses, and I rode in, and next slide, and I preached at the Wood Mountain Rodeo. So if you're ever in Wood Mountain in the first weekend in July, go and see if there's still a church service there, or who knows, they may invite me back, though they haven't yet. I believe firmly that we all do receive what we need to have in order that our hearts do fill their desires. But sometimes it isn't what we expect. And what we need then is faith. What we need then is to look at life and say that, yeah, I'd sketched it all in. You know, this is where I was going to go, and now here, and then over here, but that's not how it turned out. And it's then we need to have that faith which reminds us that your view of life, my view of life, our view of life ahead of us is extremely limited, extremely tentative. We can't predict it really at all. You know, we go along and we say, this is who I am, and this is how I am, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to be. Just begin by saying, and that very seldom happens, but what I will get will fill my needs, and I'll be able to be me, but maybe not quite in the picture that I'm expecting right now. On one of our trips to Russia, we found that tour guides in Russia have a lot of anti-government jokes, which they only tell you when you're very, very separated from everybody else. And one of them I remember was about the Gorbachev years and two pilots taking off from an airport in Moscow and turning to one another and saying, that was a good takeoff. We're on our way, everything's fine, green lights right across the panel. Now, if only they had built the airport at the other end of the line. We'll have to wait and see about that. And that's sometimes what life is like. We take off, we're heading in a direction, we know it's going to be a good direction because God is with us, but you know what? You don't actually know where you're going, and neither do I. And that's when we get into the discipline of, with faith, learning patience. Keep flying, keep acting, keep doing the best you can, and things will work out. Richard Nixon's grandmother had a saying which he quoted often in his later years, and that is that you need to take time to be silent to find out what God wants from you. We all need to take time to be silent to find out what God needs from us. See, when we think of communication with God, in fact, when we hear the word prayer, immediately we go into shopping list mode. Prayer. Okay, I pray for the people who are in the forest fires, people in political instability, people in countries with violence, my Aunt Myrtle who's in the hospital. We could go on all day with things we want. The most important part, however, is the other side of prayer, when we sit quietly, meditatively, and calmly, and think, okay, this is who I am. I wonder what life is going to call me to be in the coming week. And I prepare myself to be that person, no matter how it may happen, no matter where I am. And that's probably one of the main reasons why on special days like today, we come to special places that are different from the normal places we live in and work in, and take some time while the man blabbers at the front and reflect on our own lives. You know, what gifts do I haven't used? What's God really calling me to do? I know I've sketched this in, this is how I see myself going, but is that really the best path? Or maybe there's a voice, something that touches me, and I'm going to end up somewhere else. So we live in faith. We live patiently, not rushing it. Life comes to us at exactly the space and the pace that it should. And finally, we've got to be ready to accept surprises, because that's ultimately what life is like. It's a long list of surprises. Kurt Vonnegut summed it up like this: history is merely a list of surprises. It can only prepare us to be surprised yet again. Be ready for the surprises. As some of you know, I'm a gamer. World of Warcraft, Animal Crossing, Fantasy Life, that's what I do. And something you learn to live with in games are portals. You know, a portal is any way of going from here over to here very quickly, because if it couldn't go from here to here very quickly, the game would be really, really boring. So there are always some sort of magic openings or stones or wishes or dragons that will come and take you from here to here, and they're called portals in one way or another. And life is about having portal moments. Times when we're going along quite happily, knowing approximately where we're going and why we're going there, and then suddenly, whoo, we're somewhere else completely. We have to get used to that. You see, our usual response is, well, it's usually to get upset. Oh, why did everything change? Why did this happen to me? Why am I here? What is it? That does absolutely not one bit of good. I mean, it gives your adrenaline gland some exercise, but other than that, getting upset about things is not going to change a thing. This is where you are. Yes, you used to be over there. Yes, you planned to be over there, but now you're here. You've had a portal moment. You're in a different place. So I'm going to worry about what comes next. Well, that doesn't do anything either, except take the energy out of what you can do, because you're so caught up in worrying about where you're going that you won't have the energy to get there. Be ready for those portal moments, and don't go, oh, this is terrible, or oh, I didn't want this, or oh, this isn't what I expected, because that is useless. But rather simply say, I was at A, and I went to B, and I went to C, and then, ooh, now I'm at P. Okay, that's what happens. We had a portal moment in our family a few weeks ago. My wife, who was here this morning, and I did not ask if I could, can I use this story? She says yes because she has no idea what story is. She's hoping, I hope it isn't about that. No, my wife was stopped legally and well on 26th Avenue by the school, and somebody plowed into, at a high rate, the back of her car. Dorothy is fine. The car did what it should have done, and that is it collapsed in, but it meant that we no longer had a car. So suddenly we went from a family with 2 cars who had a nice schedule and were planning out things to a family with only 1 car and all the hassle of insurance and buying a new car, and even finding a new car. We went and asked for a new Prius, and the man just laughed at us and said, well, if you got a year, you can have a new Prius. And we decided maybe a little bit faster would be good. But we got through it. No, we didn't expect it. We didn't plan it. We certainly wouldn't have written it onto the agenda. I think at this point I'd like to have a car crash. No, that isn't the way things happen. But we got there, we hung together, we got on with our lives. This is like Abraham and Sarah. They were an older couple in a large extended family with people all around them, and they had, I'm sure, come to the conclusion that they were going to be childless, and when they died that the family structure would have to change, and certain people would be getting certain flocks and others would be getting others. And yeah, this is what our life is like. And then these gentlemen from afar, they're never described as being anything other than 3 people, but anyway, they arrived, and it was a portal moment. Their lives completely changed. And Sarah, remember this, Sarah laughed. She said, you know, I'm old, I'm tired, I'm beyond all this, and now I get it. Wow, this is interesting. We need to learn to laugh more. We need to learn to do what we've always done, and we've forgotten that's what we've always done, and that is simply find something. You're now at this point in life, you've come through the portal, you're standing here. This isn't the surprise you wanted, but it's the surprise you got. All you need to do is pick one thing to do. Whew. I think I'll get out of the car first. I've now done something. Get the addresses, get the insurance, call people, do things. That's what we have to do. And as we're doing it, rather than getting angry, rather than wishing something else had happened or thinking that we're imperfect because we didn't see this happening, we just smile and say, God has that delightfully challenging sense of humor. That now I've got this to deal with, and you know what? You will. God is with us. As we're patient, the future meets us. His love sustains us. The spirit of hope guides us, and we get through life. So what we're doing here this morning is just preparing to go out that door and be surprised. And you will be. And think of this moment the next time, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, when you're really surprised and say, yeah, I was told this was going to happen, and God is still here. and I'm still here. And I can still move, and I can still live, and I can still dream. And for this, thanks be to God.